Hi, and welcome to the fourth section of this course, Publish Subscribe with Azure Redis Cache. In this section, we will try to understand what Publish Subscribe pattern is. We will try to utilize the same pattern in the WPF application. We will see how Redis protocol can be utilized to perform the Publish Subscribe activities in a demonstration that we have prepared in this section. In the first video, we will take a look at what Publish Subscribe pattern actually means. In a very traditional environment, most of the times the network-oriented applications utilize a workflow in which the clients utilize the HTTP libraries or the handlers and send a request to the servers. The servers then communicate with the database or the internal storage mechanisms and try to provide the data. What happens is that the database returns the information to the server and server then transfers the data down to the client. This is a very normal procedure in which the client requests the data and server provides the response. Now just imagine if database and HTTP handlers are of the same number, but the clients increase. It means that the HTTP handlers or the servers responsible for managing the traffic on the network now require to transfer more data on the wire, which means that the load now has increased. So in order to decrease the load of the applications on the server, we typically try to follow some different approaches or the different models of service development. One of such a model is the publish subscribe pattern. What happens in this model is that clients establish the connection with the servers and try to handshake, and then the server tries to store the IP address of the client and map it to some of the identification such as the username or the groups that the client is going to listen to. Similarly, the client also tries to open up the socket for communication so that the server can push the information to the client as it is made available, instead of having the client to request for more resources from the server timely. And this is a very basic workflow of how the publish subscribe pattern works. Publishing is done by the server and subscribing is done by the clients. The clients will most likely subscribe to a channel or a topic or some of the pipelines from the server, and server will be publishing the news, content, messages or streams to a pipe, and the client will be able to fetch all the information from those pipes. A real-world example of publish subscribe pattern implementation is the push notifications in our smartphones. The service is able to push the messages to the clients. It is even able to push the messages to the servers that act as a client. It can also push the notifications or the messages to other Redis implementations or servers when they also act as a client. Similarly, the service can store the information or the data that was just pushed by the clients in a file stream, such as for the backup purposes. So in a nutshell, the load now has been distributed on several nodes or the parts of the transmission or the communication channel. The service is responsible for sending the data instead of having the client to request for any updated data. This means that the client no longer has to request the information from the server timely. The server is responsible for pushing the information to the clients. Also, the network is also best utilized because as soon as the data is made available on the server, it's pushed down to the client slowly, byte by byte. And lastly, application is responsible for capturing the data and for rendering the data on the screen for the users instead of having to wait for a timer and then requesting the information from the servers. So that is pretty much how the publish subscribe pattern works in the Redis protocol. Redis itself is a very fast program that is responsible for providing the information from the keys, such as the cached information, but it is also very flexible in writing the data to the clients via the publish subscribe pattern.